The Battle of Gettysburg was the deadliest battle in all of the Civil War. It took place from July 1st through July 3rd of 1863 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Confederate Army was trying to invade the northern states and stop support for the Union. There were many factors that led to this battle. It all began when Robert E. Lee, a Confederate general, wanted to invade the North and take over Harrisburg. His army consisted of 3 corps, with a total of 75,000 men. During the entire invasion of the North, Lee and his army had been disconnected from their supply base in Virginia. However, his army carried any ammunition that was needed, and they lived off of land in Pennsylvania. On June 28th, President Lincoln replaced General Joseph Hooker, who commanded the Army of the Potomac, with General George Meade. Meade's army, consisting of 85,000 men, had 10,000 more soldiers in it than Lee's army. 3 days later, on July 1st, the Battle of Gettysburg began. To quote Robert E. Lee, "A battle thus became, in a measure, unavoidable." During the early morning hours, Confederate General A.P. Hill led his army into Gettysburg in search of needed shoes. At the time, Gettysburg was a thriving town that contained 12 roads leading into it from every direction. When the Confederates finally arrived to Gettysburg, they stumbled upon Union General John Buford and his division. Buford's army, well equipped with ammunition, was successfully able to hold off Hill's division until Union General John Reynolds arrived to push the Confederate attack back. Then, Union General Oliver Howard and his army were driven back into a weak position on Cemetery Hill by Confederate General Richard Ewell's division. Later on in the day, a 2-mile defensive line was laid out by the Union around Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill to Little Round Top. Since this defensive line had not been completed by the end of the day, General Lee planned to attack it the following day. The morning of July 2nd began with General Lee commanding General James Longstreet to attack the Union defensive line. Unfortunately, General Longstreet thought that the way the Union had set themselves up was too frightening, but General Lee demanded that the Union be assaulted. Although Lee planned the attack to take place in the morning, it was not until 4 p.m. that General Longstreet got his men situated and into position to fight. Due to this major time setback for the Confederates, Longstreet became the one to blame, a scapegoat, for the failure of the Confederates in the Battle of Gettysburg. He was accused by Southerners of not obeying Lee's orders, which caused the Confederates to lose the battle and also the Civil War. When Longstreet began his assault, he and his division came across General Daniel Sickles and his army, who were located in a peach orchard in a position that was not permitted during the battle. It is said that some of the bloodiest fighting of the war took place in the peach orchard, as well as a nearby wheat field and system of boulders called Devil's Den. As Longstreet had begun to do damage to Sickles' defensive line, Meade was able to get back up to help Sickles. Simultaneously, Gouverneur K. Warren, the head engineer for Meade, hurried his army to Big and Little Round Top. These mountains were vacant, so Warren wanted to secure them, as they were tall and would greatly aid the Union in the battle. Colonel Joshua Chamberlain, a Union leader who headed the 20th Maine, stopped an attack by Confederates even though his army had run out of ammunition. By the end of the day, Culp's Hill had been captured by Ewell, and the Union line was still standing strong. Both the Union and Confederacy had the largest number of casualties on this second day of battle. In total, about 20,000 men had been killed on July 2nd. July 3rd, the third and final day of battle, began when Lee assaulted Ewell's army. Longstreet was ordered to confront the Union divisions led by George Pickett, James Pettigrew, and Isaac Trimble. Every division combined consisted of 14,000 men, all of whom used artillery to assault Union infantry. Longstreet demanded that 150 pieces of artillery be used to assault Union forces. This offensive lasted for 2 hours and was the largest artillery onslaught by the Confederacy in all of the war. Overall, only a small amount of damage was done to the Union defensive line because the Confederacy aimed their weapons too far above their target. At 3 p.m., Pickett's charge began. George Pickett's 3 armies made their way to Cemetery Ridge. On the Union side, General Winfield Scott Hancock and his division boldly fired on the Confederates, who served as easy targets. 14,000 men participated in this charge, and more than 7,000 were killed during this conflict. Of all the divisions involved, Pickett's experienced the heaviest loss, with 2/3 of its men having been killed, as well as its 3 brigade commanders and its 13 colonels. General Lewis Armistead and his small group of soldiers, however, did manage to do some damage to the Union line, although later on Armistead and all of his soldiers were either captured, wounded, or killed. The Battle of Gettysburg ended by July 4th as Lee and his division left Gettysburg. While they were departing, Meade was left wondering if he should attack Lee or not. However, when analyzing all of the damage that was already done, Meade decided not to counterattack. On the other hand, Lincoln wished that Meade would have assaulted and annihilated Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia so that they would not be able to escape from Pennsylvania without a fight. On July 13th, Meade planned to attack on Lee and his division. Unfortunately, there were too many unknown factors, such as the extent of Lee's strength, that influenced Meade not to put his plan into action. By July 14th, Lee and his army had crossed the Potomac into safety in Virginia. Overall, the Battle of Gettysburg was a short-lived but costly and bloody conflict. The battle ended up being a Union victory and changed the course of the entire war. In total, 51,112 men died. There were 23,049 Union casualties and 28,063 Confederate lives claimed. Over the course of the 3 days in which this battle took place, the most number of men died as compared to any other battle in the Civil War.